And on the line, we have a friend of the show, longtime friend of Sports Card Radio, to be perfectly honest, really from the beginning. Val, who I've actually met in person a couple different times at the National Sports Collectors Conventions. We'll get into all that. But Val, you're a NASCAR and a NASCAR sports card expert. I think I can say that with 100% certainty. We got Daytona. The biggest race of the year is coming up. Daytona 500 is about a month away. Is there anything that you're excited about, or that race fans are excited about with this new season kind of coming up?
Yeah, hey Ryan. I'm very excited about the new season. We have Panini Donruss getting ready to come out here the beginning of February. Between the Cup drivers and the drivers being moved around, and the Xfinity truck, the rookies that are coming up, it's pretty exciting. Can't wait for the new season.
Who are the top drivers right now? Give me a little refresher course. If I'm going to Vegas, I think actually I'm going to Vegas tonight. If I'm betting who's going to win the whole shebang, the whole Cup, who are the 2 or 3 drivers that maybe have a shot at this?
Well, this is kind of an interesting, in the off season they make changes. So you have your manufacturers, Ford, Chevy, Toyota. Ford is getting a new body style this year. Chevy got a new style last year with Camaro, and I think that's why it took a while for, Jimmy Johnson and Chase Elliott, the Hendrick guys, do a little better. They came on strong at the end of the season, but the Fords were very dominant last year with Kevin Harvick and the Stewart-Haas race drivers. I think every one of the 4 drivers won a race last year. But saying that, so the Ford's getting a new body style with the Mustang. So if I was a betting man, I would think it would be one of the Chevys, since this is their second year, and, Chase Elliott and William Byron. So the Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus team, they were a staple since Jimmy Johnson started, but Hendrick broke them up, and Chad Knaus has moved over to William Byron. So he's, an up-and-coming rookie. So I would expect William Byron to do very well this year. And then Chase Elliott turned it on. Actually, on my flight back, I'm a big Chase Elliott fan, but on my way back from the national convention, I get off the plane, and at Watkins Glen was going on, and Chase Elliott won the race. And I was like so disappointed I didn't get to watch his win. But he turned it on and won 3 races there. And the reason I say that, so that race was in the beginning of August. So between August and the end of the season, he won 3 races.
Wow. So does Ford and Chevy dominate? Is there another car maker even involved with NASCAR, or is it just Ford and Chevy right now?
Ford, Chevy, Toyota.
Okay.
They're all secretly working on their parts. They can, like Toyota, I think Toyota supplies the engines, and then the teams tweak them. I think with Ford, I think it's Roush Yates. They are engine builders, and I think they supply the bulk of the Ford motors. But NASCAR is very technical. Originally, wasn't a big racing fan. I came up through baseball, collecting baseball cards and hockey cards. And, my first take on racing was, they go around the circle, go 500 miles, and you finish where you started, But after going to a race and realizing the technology and, a couple of pounds of pressure in a tire here and there on right sides or left sides can change the feel of the car, and just it's interesting. So back to your thing about each of the manufacturers are working hard, spending countless hours trying to find an advantage.
And I guess this might be a hard question to answer, but what percentage of the success of a race team is the driver and the car setup? I mean, a lot of this probably has to do with money. I mean, you've got to have millions upon millions of dollars to get these cars tuned and perfected and maintained in the exact specification, and let alone you're shipping these cars and your team across the country to all these different races. This is an extremely expensive sport. How much, I guess, in your opinion, how much of it is the car in percentage basis, and how much is it the driver? Can a really great driver take a shitty car and win a race against some lesser skilled drivers, or can a great car, kind of carry a weaker driver through the finish line?
The driver helps, and people get hung up on the wins and stuff, but in the NASCAR community, or you'll see the mark of a good driver is the car runs maybe in the 20s or in the top 10s, and they're able to finish better than they should. That makes any sense for the amount of money that they're spending. So it's very rare for a small team to win a race. Something's got to happen big, rain delay or a gas. They run very efficient on gas and don't have to make a stop for gas, so it's a fuel mileage type win. But the odds of the greatest driver coming out there in the worst car to win is impossible. These guys are winning by hundredths of a second, tenths of a second. You can see that when they qualify. Now, I think going back to the 30s or 40s, there was a saying that money is speed. And the more people you have working to find an advantage, try to find a gray area in the rule book and to exploit. So something that pops into mind, there was a point where somebody realized that if they pull the passenger side panel out a little bit, they would get better aero. And so they caught somebody on pit road. They came in, and one of the guys, over the wall guys, went around and started pulling out that side of the car, even though it had no damage. And NASCAR got tipped off, and then they were not allowed to do that anymore. So they're looking everywhere. There was an article I read that Chip Ganassi, that he had bought it was a tunnel in maybe, I think it was the West Virginia or Virginia mountains that was abandoned. And so what he did was he paved it, and if follow me here, is he would use it to test the car. So the air temperature and everything would be the same inside the tunnel. So when they made a change to the car, they can actually see what the change would do. Does that make any sense?
Wow.
Yeah, so once they found out about that, they kind of banned that.
Yeah, the oversight in NASCAR must be incredible, because these guys are in their garage tinkering on these cars. I mean, it must be pretty incredible to make sure that nobody is getting an advantage or trying to cheat or anything of that nature. So you said you kind of were like a lot of people and weren't interested in NASCAR maybe initially, but then you start getting into it. When was this that you started kind of getting into it?
This was moved to Charlotte back in the late 80s and really didn't get into racing. A friend at work had an extra ticket for the All-Star race here in Charlotte, and I went, and it was interesting. The All-Star race is one of those ones I recommend because the race is not really long, but it's really cool. It's broken up into stages, and they would invert the field and stuff. And so I kind of started with racing, and then I met my wife, and her dad worked for one of the oil companies, gas stations and stuff, and I was able to go down. He was into racing, and would go down to the pits and stuff, and then kind of see the technology and pit road, and then it was really cool. And then having collected cards, it was really cool because I think it was in Talladega I went one time, and there was a rain delay, and so I went to the driver, I don't know what it was, infield center, and sitting there watching the rain delay on ESPN, and Myers is there. He was the gas man for Dale Earnhardt and stuff, but I was walking around and had a hat and got some autographs, and it just kind of blossomed from there. And having collected cards, and then living in Charlotte, and with us Charlotte getting the Hall of Fame, I just started getting deeper and deeper, and just found it more and more interesting. And then couldn't find anything on vintage racing, and so I had to do the research. I was used to picking up a Beckett when I was collecting baseball and reading everything I could about them, and so I started on that journey to research about the vintage racing cards.
Okay, so talk to me about that because I'm really curious about that. So, yeah, I could see how there's, this is all pre-internet, these racing sets, obviously. And so and Beckett, wasn't around even then and covering stuff. So how did you find information about these specific sets?
So, Beckett, I didn't start until maybe 2005 to get really heavy into it. I ran into some PSA graded Max cards, and I knew the Max set was iconic, and so I started collecting in PSA. But you pull the Beckett, and it's got a little bit of information, but not a lot on some of the history. And to answer your question, it was a 2008 sports convention at the national. I ran into you met him, Logan. He collected NASCAR sets, and I had one of the sets on the registry and ran into him, and he had his NASCAR jacket on, so I knew he collected NASCAR, and we kind of hit it off from there. But talking with him, I ran into, found old magazines before Beckett published magazines. Wow. Back in 89 to, I think it was 94, 95, Beckett got in. But I was able to acquire old magazines, and Logan let me borrow old magazines, and I started just diving in and looking at not the classifieds, when you write into the magazine, all these asking questions and stuff, right, and reading those in the articles. And then I've actually scanned some of the earlier stuff and put it out on one of the sites I created, Racing Card Info. And, it's page by page scanned, and you can read, the information about the sets and what the old prices used to be. But, I was trying to find out. The first set was 1972 STP, and they were so hard to find. I had actually seen an article in Beckett talking about 1972 STP, but there wasn't a lot of information on it. And so I knew it was STP, and I knew on the back it said Compliments Racing Pictorial, and that was a magazine that came out in the 50s, 60s to the 80s, and was color portraits. And, I realized that some of the pictures looked the same, and so he took the pictures, and I actually wrote a letter to Andy Granatelli, who was head of STP for a while, trying to find out the distribution. And he didn't remember all the specifics, but that I found other people that would sell them on eBay, and I asked them where they got them, and they talked about getting them at the track or at the 1972 Speed Week in Daytona.
Wow.
So, tracking that down, and then the 83 Unos, luckily there's not that many vintage sets.
Right.
And the 83 Uno, there was an article in the 1991 Collector's World where this was the first time that the Collector's World folks had ever even seen the 83 Uno set. And so they talk about that, and that the person who at the end of the article said that you could buy a set for $200 from the gold card. So I did a business lookup, and the gold card was by David Chobat. He was a photographer who took pictures at the NASCAR tracks and stuff. So he tried to start up a card company, but he had done the 1983 Uno set. So it's just kind of detective work and stuff. It was really cool, a lot of fun, and then I'm realizing that nobody knew about this stuff.
Right. I mean, it's kind of amazing to kind of unearth these old card sets. And so today, what is how many cards in the STP set, and what would it cost me to acquire it? I guess maybe I'd have to acquire it piece by piece, or what would an STP set cost?
Well, the set is made out of 11 cards, or comprised of 11 cards, and there's 2 cards of Fred Lorenzen. He was a driver. They're very rare, and they don't come up on eBay quite a bit, or you don't see them at auction. I always think about, like baseball, there's always a couple of 1952 Manos up on right, eBay, and some of the, I guess you can consider them, they're all, the high numbers are harder to get. So the STPs are kind of like that. They don't go for a lot of money. Richard Petty's probably is in that set. It's just kind of his rookie. Well, I guess they're all rookies, but a couple of $100, maybe 200, 300.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
Condition. So they're not very expensive. And it's like the 83 Uno set. They're not very expensive. The hardest part is finding them. They're a couple dollars each, but the 83 Uno's got the Dale Earnhardt Sr. in it, Darrell Waltrip, and but the 72 SDP has got Bobby Allison and Benny Parsons, Buddy Baker, like I said. But the Lorenzen, there's two of them. One is like a closer shot of him, and then him sitting next to the car or kneeling next to the car, and I've been trying to find the one next to the car is the hardest one, and I had gotten I think I got them all except for the one by the car, but I did track down a scan of the front and back of it, and it's got the same back as the Fred Lorenzen, and I had done a lot of investigation because it gives you information on the back about some of their stats and stuff, so I was able to look at Racing Reference and try to figure out what years, and it looks like there were like 2 or 3 times in 1970, I think it was, that they corresponded, so they might have printed them up a couple of different times. But the Lorenzen was interesting because in 1972, he had retired in the late 60s and then had come out of retirement. He knew Andy Granatelli because he raced, Granatelli ran he was from Chicago or Illinois and some tracks and stuff up there, so as a promoter. And so they knew each other, and he actually, I guess, got, if I remember the numbers right, Fred Lorenzen to come out of retirement, or they kind of hooked up after he came out of retirement and ran like only 14 races in 71. And SDP sponsored those in 71. So where I'm going with this is in 72, Fred Lorenzen did not run the 1972 Daytona 500. He was there because somebody said they were there in the press box. He was in the press box and stuff. So that I think maybe that one with Fred Lorenzen kneeling was made earlier and given out, and then realized.
I see.
And so Petty took over the SDP. It was famously from 1972 on. I guess that's the point I was trying to say. So these cards predate 72, but I guess the majority of them were given out in 72. Granatelli, they were all giveaways. Like the early baseball cards and football cards, the first couple of sets, were giveaways, and then Topps and Bowman and them made cars that sell them. So that didn't happen in NASCAR until 1988 Max set. So everything before that were giveaways or, promotional type things.
Wow. So yeah, you have these very, rare SDP and Uno, the card game. I think we all maybe grew up playing that game. So, very few sets. And then, like you said, you get late 80s, you get early 90s, you get kind of a sports card explosion across all the sports. And so you get a lot of, and NASCAR subsequently at the same time is exploding. Jeff Gordon is hitting the scene. I know he got a huge endorsement deal with Pepsi. And Jeff Gordon in the early 90s is as famous as athlete as almost anyone. I mean, Michael Jordan and maybe a handful of other people more popular than Jeff Gordon at the time. What was it like? I guess maybe you weren't deep into collecting during the 90s, but you've probably gone back and looked at it. What are some of the key sets in the 90s, and how does that compare to maybe the vintage stuff and the stuff made today? What was it like, kind of the mass-produced era of the 90s for NASCAR cards?
You had the boom in the late 80s, and so 88 Max, 89 Max, and 90 Max had I think it was a 3-year, they were the ones who produced cards, but then once 91 came, Trax got on board, ProSeg got on board, Max was making cards. There weren't, I don't know if Trax got an exclusive, but the 91 Trax is the only one that had Jeff Gordon, and he's got his mustache and his Charlotte Chevrolet or whatever it is. And then in 92, Trax, I think, hit it out of the park. They had an insert set, I think it was about 10 cards, and it had the Jeff Gordon was in it. So he was running, I guess it was Busch then, the Xfinity. He was running lower. He didn't get Cup until 93 or 94. But they included him in that autograph, and there's a duel with Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt Sr., which is pretty cool, as well as Bobby Labonte and stuff. So that 92 Trax autograph set's pretty nice. There weren't a lot of hot rookies in the early mid 90s other than Jeff Gordon. You had, I guess, Kenny Wiles and Bobby Labonte, but they were nowhere near as successful as Jeff Gordon and Ray Evernham. That made me think of the 95. There's a Optimus set, and Jeff Gordon's in it, and then they had the Rainbow Warriors. They had their crew, and Chad Knaus was I think it was a tire changer for Jeff Gordon and Ray Evernham, and later on he would be paired up with Jimmy Johnson and have won 7 championships. So that 95 is pretty cool. I love getting the base cards autographed, so I had gotten Chad Knaus to sign a couple of those 95 Optimas. They're like a tall boy. They're same width but taller than a normal card. So, and then the late 90s, Max kind of went out of business. Upper Deck bought either the rights, and then by about 2000, Upper Deck got out of racing as well. I don't remember, the baseball, they had the massive printing, and then you had the contraction, and then, with that, but in racing, Upper Deck pretty much just got out of, they produced SP, I think it was from 95 to 2000, and then they were done. When they did the 2000 SP, that's Jimmy Johnson's rookie year, they kind of, threw whatever else they had, autographs and stuff in those, in that product. So there's a couple of other autographs here. I think it's like MVP and some other stuff, but the other thing that made me think of is, so in the 1988 Dale Earnhardt is one of those things that, is iconic, but when 88 Max was produced, they never came to terms with Dale Earnhardt, and they, instead of destroying the card, they just kind of pulled it, and, they had boxes of them at the warehouse. But in 94, they worked out so in 89, they worked out a deal, and he has a card in 89, but in 94, they worked out a deal with him to release 1,000 copies of the 1988. It's got a sticker on it that shows it's like from 0 to 999, and it was in a different release, and I think it was like one redemption per case.
Interesting.
And then he also signed 100 copies of it as well. So, that's kind of cool. So all the other Dale Earnhardts, the 88s, are really, I guess, unauthorized, but because of time and people don't realize it, it's gotten a foothold in the hobby, and people think it's, legitimate. But at this point, it is.
That's interesting. So are they like backdoor, or are they counterfeit? The 88
No, they're
ones?
real.
Okay.
They pulled them all. But when Max went bankrupt, they had the bankruptcy sale, and people
got them.
Bought boxes of them. I wish I would have been collecting at that point. It would have been nice to have seen some of that. But the local hobby shops, I went in there, and asked him if he had racing and stuff, and he was telling me the story where a guy had come in with 200 of those cards, and they were sitting around a fire. His grandfather had gotten them, or whatever it is, and his girlfriend, they were throwing him in the fire. They're pitching him in the fire.
Oh my God.
And his girlfriend's like, hey, shouldn't you check to see if they're worth anything or whatever? And so they took him to the hobby shop, and the guy helped consign them. And so, but I guess that was, what was that, about 2005, I guess it was. So, but I don't think Max destroyed anything. I think they just printed and had pallets and pallets and pallets of cards. In the 1992, the 5th anniversary, they have a red and a black series, and in the black series, I guess this is I guess they call it a buyback or whatever. But in each pack was a card from either from 1988 to 1991. So I always think that they didn't reprint anything; they just pulled from their warehouse.
Right? Yeah, they just had a box in the back. So wow, that's pretty crazy. So we have all these kind of companies that it's funny. Trax and Max and Press Pass and all these guys are not around anymore. And Upper Deck makes cards. What'd you say, up until the year 2000? When did Press Pass get their license? Was it like mid 2000s? Do you remember?
They're actually, I think it's 1993, they made
Okay.
some kind of factory set, and then in 94 they started producing. Wheels also got in there, but I think the two companies merged. I
Okay.
think Press Pass, their parent company, had something to do with oil and gas or something like that. So, they were a kind of an offshoot of their business. And then in 2014, I don't think they did a very good job of marketing and their product and stuff. They relied on the diehard, didn't try to go out for new business, but they just basically dumped the 2015 set and just closed the doors in the end of 14.
Right, I remember that. And then it felt like maybe about a year later that Panini jumps in and has made sets since then. What are your thoughts on the current maker of NASCAR cards, Panini, like overall?
I think they do a good job. Again, I don't understand some stuff. I mean, the product's great, but I don't understand. And you've talked about it before, like with the other sports, with marketing from the major brands. I was watching, I guess, a preseason baseball game last year, and on ESPN or whatever it was, they showed, one of the current players on a 1986 Topps brand looking card, and I'm like, well, why don't we have that in NASCAR? Why aren't they publicizing? NASCAR's different than baseball because all these teams have to be negotiated differently, and then you have to get the sponsor involved. I saw it with the Panini Instant set. I thought that was a great idea. They started that in 2016 for the chase. They did the whole 2017 season and then kind of shut it down. I think there's ways that they can maximize. I mean, that 2016 and 17 Panini Instant, they have these small press runs. I don't understand why, people don't snap them up. All of them have a press run less than 100.
Wow.
Yeah, so the Jimmy Johnson, where he's a 7-time champ, that only has a print run of 94 cards.
Wow.
So what do? I buy some and then I get them to sign them.
That's one thing you're big into, is getting these guys to sign cards. How do you go about doing it? I assume some of it's in person, some of it's through the mail, but how does that work out?
If you kind of look, you can find, ways. Either they have public appearances or through the mail. Jimmy Johnson's is difficult to do, but they come to the NASCAR Hall of Fame, so I'm able to do that. Go to the induction ceremony. The induction ceremony. So at the end of this month, I think it's February 1st. They're going to have the induction ceremony here, and Jeff Gordon will be here. And I would imagine, and this is a little bit of speculative, that Rick Hendrick's going to be here, and Jimmy Johnson's going to be here, and all of them. And so if you go to the ceremony, they will be there, and all the other, drivers and other stuff. So those are great opportunities to get autographs. I try to do like a value-added type. Not everything autographed, increases in price. Not that I sell them, but, I always try to look at it as a value-added, rookie cards autographed or something, commemorative or limited. And then I also work on complete sets or complete insert sets that I either like the design or for some reason it strikes me, and, getting them signed. So it's some of that. If you are located near a racetrack, or if you go to the track, drivers will come and sign autographs with their sponsors. Brad Keselowski, Discount Tire, or Martin Truex with Pro Bass. I remember Jeff Gordon doing one, I think it was for Walmart or something. So if you follow them on Twitter, or they have fan days as well. The week between the All-Star race and the 600 here in Charlotte, the race teams have fan days. They're free. You just get there early and get in line, and you get a wristband, and then That's usually the way they work. We've gotten, I took my daughter as well for Danica Patrick. It was Sports Academy, I think it was. So, if you just put a little bit of time in and just kind of look, they're making appearances, and they don't charge, unlike the other sports. And that's one of the things that drew me. They are so patriotic. They're so fan-friendly.
Right.
It's really cool. And, you can buy packages to go to the pits and get autographs. One lady that I know, she's kind of a liaison between the fan and the drivers of the teams. She goes by Infield Jen, Jen, and you can find her on Facebook, and she's got her own website. I got some of the really cool different things that you can do. It's all about the money. So, Hendricks got the big sponsors, and I don't know I'm sure you heard, like, Martin Truex, he won the championship 2017, and for was it Denver Mattress, and they're basically going out of business.
Wow.
Martin Truex and Pro Bass Shops were going to move to Joe Gibbs Racing, and so he just, instead of trying to fight for new sponsors, he shut down. So I guess what I'm saying is it's all about the money. But some of these smaller teams, they'll have 40 cars at a race, and they are always looking for sponsors and help. And she's got some different packages, or she knows teams that you can go through and get your name on the car and meet and greet the driver and the team. You get an autographed hero card, behind the scenes tour, lunch with the team on race day.
Wow.
Stand on pit road with the driver and team during the race ceremonies, pre-race ceremonies, and you can watch the race from the pits. And that you can do the Cup level, the Xfinity level, and the truck level. And and I think it's pretty reasonable when you consider how much baseball and football, trying to get an autograph. And that's the other thing too, is so you get the pit pass or a hot cold pass, and you actually be able to go into the garage.
Oh yeah.
Now,
yeah.
You don't want to, while they're working on the car.
Wow.
You need to be careful you don't get run over and stuff. And these guys are there to work, but it's really cool to go and observe. And, when the drivers are going in and out of the cars or in and out of the haulers, you can get autographs. So not just only from, whoever you're going to visit, but Jimmy Johnson and you see the owners too, Tony Stewart and Joe Gibbs and Richard Childress and stuff. So it's really cool that the access you get, instead of just sitting in the stands and watching the cars go around.
Right. This is like a backstage
really
pass. Yeah, this is like a backstage pass to a concert. So this lady has connections to all the series where this is every race that this goes down. You could get behind the scenes at every race in the NASCAR series.
Yeah, any truck, Xfinity, or Cup race during the whole season. Yeah.
Wow. So how do people get a hold of this lady and figure out? I'm sure she has prices and different levels of things you can get. How do people get a hold of her?
So through her Facebook page, Infield Jen, Jen, or on her website, infieldjen.com. You just ask her, and she'll email you the information. And they have something called a hot pass and a cold pass. Hot pass is you're allowed in the garage and everything while the cars are on the track. And then the cold pass is only when the cars are not running, like when the race is not running. So,
okay.
But she can explain everything, and she's got all the levels and stuff. And like I said, I think it's a bargain, and you'll never forget it. And then all the access, and you never know who you're going to run into. So it's really cool, and celebrities as well. So it's pretty cool.
Right. And yet, like you said, if you're after autographs, you want to get as close as possible and away from, all the other autograph seekers as possible, and get down there where you can get some personal time with these people, and certainly they might come over and sign something for you. That's pretty cool. They got 2 races out here in Phoenix. Maybe I got to contact Jen and see what my backstage pass to. You know who I'd want a backstage pass to? Maybe actually in about 6 months is this. We got to talk about this young lady, Hailey Deegan, last name Deegan. Deegan, Hailey Deegan. She is 17 years old. She's going to turn 18 later this year. I think my nephews, who are about high school age, would probably find her attractive. She's the first female to win a NASCAR K&N Pro Series race. She is the first woman to win Rookie of the Year. She is the daughter of motocross rider Brian Deegan. And just some quick research, Panini looks like they've come out with a few cards of her. She has some things in 2018 Donruss, 2018 Victory Lane, and 2018 Panini Prism. And those will set you back at least $5 or $10 a pop for those Prism cards I was looking. Can you talk about Hailey Deegan? Could she potentially be a really good driver? What do you know about her? Is she kind of a hot name coming up?
She was in the 2018 Donruss series, and they had a subset called Next in Line, and that's where I saw her card. And she actually came to Charlotte during the Fan Appreciation Day. They had the NASCAR Next drivers, and so I did meet her and got her, but the cards weren't out yet. So I had her. They had a fan card. So I kind of knew about her, and then when the Donruss came out and she started racing in the K&N, her cards blew up. They went crazy. People were looking for them, and like you said, she qualified for the pole for one of those races. Then she won a race. I started digging like you and realized that her dad is Brian Deegan, and he has won gold medals for X Games, and then he raced motorcycles, and then they had a 2-part interview with her on one of the NASCAR stations, and she's all about racing, learning her craft. She's been running rally trucks, so she's getting experience with driving on dirt, and where that's important is, NASCAR tires are somewhat bald. They have a little bit of grip, but as time goes on, they lose grip, and they're very wide, and so the back end of the car usually will fishtail, so it's similar to dirt. And so she's been running on dirt. Danica's thing was that she was pretty good, but she was an asphalt driver and not, we had met her at one of the meet and greet things, and she talked about how the car, the grip and stuff is what was her kind of Achilles. But with Hailey Deegan, I think she's coming up the right way. She's very personable. Her dad's used to the media and stuff, so she talks about working on her endurance to be able to run a 300-lap, 500-lap race. She's running K&N West series. There's a K&N West and K&N East. Right. And usually from there, they'll come up to truck. Now, I had heard that you can't drive NASCAR truck until you're 18, and I believe her birthday is in July. So I expect that she will start to run some truck races after July of 2019. She's not necessarily in a hurry. I think she wants, and her folks are wanting her to come up the right way and not rush it. So, I think there's a lot of speculative on her, but I think she might go down as, the first woman to win a race at the different levels. She's gotten the attention. I think it was Kevin Harvick made a comment about her and her driving style, and that, that she was very good. So the key for me is if she can get into a Kyle Busch Motorsports truck, that's probably the best truck program there is, then watch out. So I think she's got the talent, she's working on her craft, and I think she's going to be really, really good.
So she's going to be 18 in June or July. How long? What's a young age for a NASCAR driver? Like, theoretically, what's her timetable to reach the big show?
18, 19. I think it was William Byron. He was running, I guess, like the I Series, which is the computer stuff, and then they put him in I think he rifled through the truck in Xfinity Series and accelerated to the Cup. 19 to early 20s.
Okay.
Is kind of a thing. And I think we were talking about, you got to be in the right equipment. You have a great driver, but if you're in bad equipment, it doesn't help. So that's why you look at when you're kind of prospecting stuff, the guys that are working or that are running or driving for the big companies like Hendrick and Stuart Haas and Joe Gibbs and stuff, those are the ones that will win races. Like we talked about before, you have 40 cars and only one winner. You'll have stage winners and stuff, but it's all about the win. So, but there can only be one winner a race, and it's kind of not like in football where you might have a hot rookie, or basketball and they take over and they're immediately dominant. It's hard for a rookie like Cup driver to come and just bank the field. It's going to happen. Like I was telling you with Chase Elliott, he'd been running for a couple of years, but everything kind of clicked for him, and he won 3 races last year. Ryan Blaney, he had won one race the prior year. I don't think he won any last year, but they're the up and coming guys in Cup, and very competitive.
Oh, I could only imagine. It's just, especially, two old companies like Ford and Chevy battling it out on the racetrack. So they're competitive in the business world and on the racetrack too.
But you were saying about with Hailey Deegan, her cards kind of blew up, and her Dunruss and stuff, her autographs were at least $100 on
wow.
the stuff, and her 101 autograph, I think I'd seen. It changed hands a couple of times. I think it changed hands like at $350 and then changed hands at $500 or $600. So at least the Dunruss 101. But she is in. She got autographs, I think, in all the 2018, the Dunruss, the certified. She doesn't have a base card, but she has an auto.
Oh, and certified? Okay.
Yeah, she got base and auto. And the folks trying to work on the rainbows. They're still. I don't think the collecting base is as large as like baseball, so the amount of product that gets opened all at one time, so the stuff trickles out.
Right.
But she's got plenty of cards.
Do you think you probably don't know, do you think they'll put her in 2019 stuff? Like, is this something like that they'll keep putting her into the sets as she keeps kind of moving along the minor leagues of the racing series?
I saw renditions of the 2019 Donruss, and she's got an autograph card in there.
Okay.
I'm sure they're going to keep her in there. I don't know. There's only, like I said, 40 drivers in Cup and Xfinity and stuff like that. So you're not talking about a great number of players. So, I would imagine she's going to have stuff, but, that saturation of too many cards.
Right.
It's not like baseball, you got each team's got whatever amount, 20, 30, 50 players, and then everybody's got a card. And so NASCAR is like a 100-card set, and they have dupes of stuff, so of the driver and then the card. And I wish they would go back to some of the older stuff where they had the track and the track layout, track
right.
information, and maybe the contact information for the track, and maybe the announcers and some different stuff, and try to break some of that set up into, maybe race winners or whatever.
It seems it does seem so focused on the driver, but I mean, it doesn't take much thought process to realize that there are dozens upon dozens of people, not counting the sponsors, behind these cars, working on these cars, responsible for these cars, and let alone the pit crew on the day of the race. Is any of the other guys' autographs or stuff worth anything or collectible at all? The pit crews and the other guys. I'm sure Joe Gibbs is an old football coach, so he's going to be collectible for that reason. But anybody not associated with driving, is their stuff collectible at all?
And I guess for the diehard fan, they would be. When Max produced that 1989 set, and I guess even up to the tracks in the early 90s, they had all-stars for, all the other positions on the crew.
Right.
And And I was telling you about that 95 Optima where they had the Rainbow Warriors, where Chad had his first card. So, I mean, some of the crew chiefs, they get into the Hall of Fame, you know, depending on how many championships and stuff like that they win. I mean, the crew chief is kind of, you know, he's in charge. You have a car chief and a crew chief. The car chief is in charge of the guys at the shop to get the car ready to go on the hauler. And then you have the crew chief who's responsible at the race and, you know, all the positions, the tire changes, jack man, all that stuff. Those guys condition, you know, 5 days a week, and
Right.
they have a weight program, and,
Yeah.
you know, they're practicing their pit stops. And I'd watched something, I think it was on Hendrick or one of the big companies. They say, you know, those guys shadow them for 2 years or whatever before they actually get to sub in and go over the wall for real. You know, it's highly choreographed. The faster the pit stop, the faster they get the car out, that they don't have to, you know, pass them on the track. So, you know, they realize that, you know, that they can make up spots by having a really fast pit crew.
That's interesting. I wonder maybe in the future if that evolves and maybe some of these other guys get a little more famous. And then that's where an area where I think somebody like Panini that has the license, yeah, you're limited to these drivers and these minor league series, but shoot, there's all these other people involved and associated with. And I think, yeah, I think even like the sponsor stickers. I mean, the old STP sticker inspired the 90s band Stone Temple Pilots. I mean, they named their band after the old STP sticker. So some of these things are kind of cool. And maybe, you know, like you said, it's hard. You get a football license. I think people should understand this. You get a football license and you get a Players Association license. You can put all the players in the football league on pictures of cards. It's all under blanketed one license. I don't have to go to Tom Brady and get a license from him, and then Antonio Brown and get a license from him, and then Jimmy Garoppolo and get a license from him. No, if I want to get their autograph, I do. But to just put their picture on a card, no, I got to go to the NFL and I got to go to the Players Association and get one license. With NASCAR, it doesn't appear that there's anything like this. So yes, you get a NASCAR license, and that's all well and good. But now I got to go talk to Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson and Dale Earnhardt and Hailey Deegan and do all these things individually. So it sounds like it sounds challenging, to say the least. Maybe that's why they've had a number of different people who have tried to make these cards over the years. Val, go ahead.
I guess it's, you know, it's a lot of work, and, you know, you're not sure about the payoff or if it's worth it.
Yeah, because it's not an established market like obviously the other four sports, even with hockey that has been cranking out cards every year since the 90s. So if Panini called you, Val, if Panini calls you, you know, we're a month away from Daytona, and I'm sure they're putting out sets here pretty soon. If they called you for advice for the 2019 NASCAR card season and release calendar, what would you tell them? What would you tell Panini?
You know, there's a couple things. One of them, I don't know if I had anything to do with it or not, but back in 2016 at the National, I talked to DJ, and I was like, man, I sure would love to see, you know, the Dunruss, you know, the 1984 Dunruss design on the, you know, set done that way. And, you know, 2017 came out, Dunruss, and they had those 84 throwbacks. So, but, so I love the kind of retro stuff, like, you know, like Heritage does with baseball. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Dunruss has been, if you'd believe it, I would tell them to try to maybe keep it consistent. You know, we've had Prism in 16 and now Prism in 18, but no Prism in 17. We had Select in 17, and we had Certified in 2016, but no Certified in 17, and we got Certified in 18. And, you know, Dunruss, this will be the third year for Dunruss, so that's the third in a row. But, you know, they made Torque, I think, in 16 and 17, but they didn't make Torque in 18. So as a base kind of collector, you know, Topps has got their base brand, and you have folks who've been collecting Topps for years. So that would be one thing. I really like the Panini Instant. I wish they would bring that back. I know it's a pain. Sometimes they wouldn't make a card because they couldn't get the approvals in time. And I wish they would do something tied into the tracks. Like with that Panini Instant, I don't know why. And I guess you'd have to work with every track. And there's a couple of track owners International Speedway Corp and Speedway Motorsports, they own the bulk of all the tracks. So I don't know if they could work with them or not, but like I was saying, to include track cards, maybe with the track layout and contact information, stuff like that, social media for them. But to work with the tracks also that, hey, the race winner, if it's your guy, you can get a limited print run of, the race winner. What better way to commemorate your experience at the track to, have your ticket with, a card that's limited print run of the driver who won. And then, trying to get the fans or the kids. I know NASCAR is doing a deal now where kids are $10, under 13 and under,
Wow.
they're $10. Yeah, so,
Damn.
they're trying, they're very fan friendly. They have family zones. I maybe go to like the stickers, and stickers I would imagine are cheap to manufacture, and they produce a ton of them, but they don't have a sticker book to get kids involved and give out packs of stickers at the tracks or whatever. Those are some of the things I would do. And NASCAR is in a contracting state right now. I think they're trying to understand and grow the sport. I think this is a great time, to collect NASCAR. There's a lot of great young drivers coming. NASCAR is trying to figure out the best way. In the old days, people would go to the tracks. It was a party, and as the sport grew, they moved tracks to all over the country. People aren't consuming racing like they used to. I think the technology and stuff, there's really a lot of cool things. You can, follow the race on the internet. They have, like, if you go to the race, they have some devices where, people before would listen to it on scanner. All the drivers communicate to their spotters and to the pits through scanner. And you can use a scanner to actually listen to the conversations between the spotter, the driver, and the crew chief. And if they're, when they're coming in, when they're going to, if they're going to get gas or how many tires and stuff. And sometimes they'll change it up and they'll use codes because they know people are listening. So, but they made that now. So, you can get that electronically through the internet. And at the Hall of Fame, they have something called a race viewing party, where if you ever go to the Hall of Fame, they have this big huge auditorium where they have a movie and stuff. But for select races, they'll show the race. There's 3 big screens. On the center screen is the live broadcast, and on the left and right, they'll have in-car cameras. And then you can also get a scanner and listen to your favorite driver or whatever. So it's like, being at the race. It's really cool. So the fan experience, it's be kind of when they mic up the football players or whatever it is, it's kind of the same thing. So NASCAR's trying to figure it out. I don't know why, people don't collect racing. I guess they're not exposed to it. But I think once you kind of peel back the covers, it's very interesting, and the experiences are really cool. And like I said, they're so fan friendly and everything. And so I think NASCAR is trying to capture that. And so with all that going on, I like to say, that I wish NASCAR and Panini could kind of work together and help bring some of that to, the younger and the collectibles crowd. They make, I think it was Lionel Racing makes the die casts and stuff like that, so you can get exact replicas of the cars and the paint schemes and stuff. So,
oh, that's cool. So do they sell the Panini cards at the track? Can I get a pack of cards like in the pro shop, or they probably have something like that?
So I always looked at the Hall of Fame, and that's one of the things I didn't like about Press Pass. I would say, how come I can't buy a pack of cards at the Hall of Fame gift shop? And we have cards, and they're like postcards. I'm like, no, you don't understand, But Panini, it does have cards. I think it was Dunruss packs at the gift shop. I don't think they have all the latest brands and stuff. So, the Hall of Fame is run by actually the city of Charlotte. And to your point, the tracks, I don't know if it's Fanatics has taken that over.
Okay, yeah.
It used to be all the drivers had their own haulers go for merchandise.
Oh.
that was one of the things with Dale Earnhardt Jr. He made and Dale Earnhardt, they just made a ton of money through merchandising. He made decent money on the track, but they make a lot of money through the merchandising and stuff. So, but I think Fanatics has picked it up, and I don't know if they sell the cards or not. It's hard to, it's a traveling circus basically.
Right.
They're on the road, and somebody in charge of that inventory, and the boxes aren't cheap. So, $50 box, or what's Prism 100? Yeah. It was 100 and something. So a box of that or a case of that missing, that's real money. So.
Right.
But I wish they would. That's how they. If you ever talk to who's my friend now, Logan, he said he was at the track in 1988, and that's where he saw Max. The factory sets were on the haulers.
Oh, wow.
For stuff, so that's where he had gotten it.
Can you talk about your friend Logan, who actually, you invited me, we were at the National in, where the hell was it, Cleveland this last summer, and you invited me to the PSA lunch that they have every year that I don't even think I knew about. And they gave away all these awards, but only one person got inducted into the PSA Hall of Fame, which I don't know if there's a greater honor in the sports card world to be inducted into the PSA Hall of Fame. So your friend Logan made it in the Hall of Fame for his NASCAR collection. Can you talk a little bit about him and how he got there?
Yeah, so I started collecting racing cards, and then got into I saw graded cards, and I thought they just kind of looked great, and you have a pristine card. And I think it was one of the sets, the 1986 set, I think it was, and I had gotten I think it was only 13 cards, and I got those encapsulated, and I had the best set on the registry, and it was going to be in Cleveland back in 2008, so I thought, let me go. And I got a letter, because when you're on the PSA registry, if you have the best set, you get invited to the PSA set luncheon. So, I was like, cool. I kind of felt bad. I got this set. It wasn't all PSA 10s or nothing, but it was a 13-card set, and I'm going to go to the lunch. So I go to the lunch, and I think my brother came with me. We drove up from Charlotte to Cleveland, and I had taken him with me. And I saw a gentleman there, and he had a jacket on with a bunch of NASCAR stuff. So I thought, okay, well, at least I knew somebody in the room, and who liked racing. So sat down and struck up a conversation with him, and that might have been it. But then in 2010 at the NASCAR Hall of Fame, I ran into him, and I was like, I think I know you. And so we kind of hit it off, and he collects a lot of racing and stuff. So there's a few sets where we are competitors on it,
right?
But we got turned into a friendship and a passion for NASCAR and NASCAR cards. He's been collecting, like I said, a long time, since '88, and he's got an amazing collection of cards and memorabilia and stuff. And then he's really heavy into the PSA sets, and I think he's got like the best '88 all 10s, and
wow.
'89. I think the '89 is a 220 card set, and I think he's got almost all 10s except 3.
Jeez.
It's and it's a beautiful. It's an orange front and a green back.
Wow.
As well as some other sets and stuff. So he's got, I don't know how many thousands of PSA graded cards, and has numerous best sets and a lot of different sets. And one of them is the '89 Winner's Circle. That's a really cool set. It's a black border. It's a 45 card set. He's got the best of that one as well. So, we've been pretty good friends here, and we've been going to the Nationals and stuff. And he has been honored numerous times with the best collection of the year. And he's had numerous sets, and he was honored with into the PSA Hall of Fame, which I didn't know was a thing, but. And it's there's only, I can't remember how many he said. It was either 15 or something like that. Only people have done it. So,
wow.
Folks who collect the T206 set or these massive pre-war things, whatever. But Logan's in the PSA Hall of Fame, and well deserved too.
Yeah, I thought the whole thing was put together really well, the lunch and just the ceremony and stuff. And they gave away a bunch of awards, I think like yearly awards for people who had a there was like somebody who had like a Charizard, like a whole bunch of PSA graded Charizard. So it crosses all the genres, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, they have different, like the best vintage and the best, for baseball and for all the sports, and the best non-sports, and then they have modern, best player, and so they will award somebody every year. I'm hoping to one day win for my 1987 Topps UK Mini Football. That's a lot to say, but
Right.
It's a really cool little set. I got the best of it, and it was a little set that was produced in the United Kingdom for U.S. To kind of introduce U.S. football.
Wow.
And it's pretty cool. It's a tough set. It's like the OPG. They're rough cuts and stuff like that.
Right.
But on the set registry, if people collect PSA cards, they should be on the set registry. And I don't know if you know that, but if you have a set on the set registry and you if it's 90% or more, you can actually get free submissions. If it's 25 to 150 cards, you get one free grading, and then 151 to 500, you get 2 free gradings, and then if it's more than 500 cards,
Oh, really? From that set?
Yeah, you can get 3 free gradings. So I mean, it's not a great deal, but
it gives you something, extra, right?
As well as the lunch. So and that's any classification. It doesn't have to be 2019 Topps baseball. I don't even know how many cards it is, 600 right. cards now or whatever, but right. A big monster. It can be a small set. It can be just an insert set. It can be anything, and you get invited to the lunch.
Yeah, like you said, I think I need to just pick up a 10-card insert set real quick and get my own pass to this lunch. I know the guy, there was a younger guy who did a presentation along with the CEO, Joe Orlando, and they talked about some changes to the PSA set registry, and they were going to add some rewards and little stuff to just kind of make it better. Have you noticed any incremental changes? What do you think about the set registry design and the website and stuff?
They announced that, I guess it was last month. It's pretty cool. You can win like a little awards and stuff. Just win these little badges and stuff for completion, and kind of to help you along and collect. And like you get an award for leaving a comment on somebody else's set, and if you create a digital registry, so you can put your cards on the set and have it, and then you can also use it to track your information. That you can make it public or not make it public. Sometimes I'll put how much I paid for something and where I got it from, and then I'll post scans, and I can post scans, and then I can turn all those scans into a digital album that I can show.
Cool.
And so if you kind of want to, show off your cards or whatever, I always like leaving descriptions and stuff like that, just in case, like with my racing stuff, if you stumble upon it, you can see, okay, like the Max said, it talks about the variations with the Myrtle Beach variations or the regular variations, or if I have some little insert sits in there that one's coming to mind here, the 98 SP Authentic, there's a little 5-card, and like Richard Petty, and I put the year he got into the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and then all the other drivers as well, David Pearson and Benny Parsons and stuff. So I like the registry. I think that is another thing for collecting. Like I said, you kind of show off, and it's fun to compete and see you have the best set in the world, basically, So
right, yeah, everybody, you kind of show off and stuff. That's what. And well, shoot, if you accumulate enough set, you end up in the Hall of Fame, maybe.
This is true too. So,
what is one of the last questions I got for you? What is your favorite? You've been going to national longer than I have. What's your favorite national venue, city?
I've only been to Cleveland, Atlantic City, and Baltimore. I think those are the 3. I've been to Cleveland twice. I'm looking forward to Chicago this year.
Oh, you never been to Chicago?
Never been to
national.
Chicago.
Oh, all right.
I'm looking forward to Chicago this year. Actually, I'm thinking about maybe going a little bit earlier in the week now. I had some health problems, and that's behind me. And I'm trying to spread the word about NASCAR cards. the passion and stuff for collecting it. And, again, it's also with collecting. I was listening to one of the podcasts, and the gentleman was saying he's been collecting for, 30-something years. And I realized that my first pack of baseball cards was a 1979 cello pack. So I've been collecting a long time. And, you pick up things here and there and over time, and it's like, well, try to share some, because I'm trying to start up a NASCAR podcast. I got to find a co-host. Nobody wants to just hear me talk to myself. So,
why not? I do it once every 2 months. I just talk to myself for 2 hours and put it on.
You started out with your brother, so you at least had that back and forth. So that was really cool back in the day. And that's been a while too. It's hard to imagine. Time goes by so fast. But you learn different different stuff. I picked up where if you take a penny sleeve and you take a scissor and you cut the first quarter of an inch on both sides, right down the seam. So when you take a card and you put it in a penny sleeve, you can hit it at an angle and you're not hitting that corner.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And then slide that in there. I just picked that up on one of the PSA
So you just
boards.
cut off both edges of a penny sleeve.
Yeah, you just make a slit. So you cut the seam on the side. You don't want to. I first tried it by cutting the triangles, and I was like, that's not what they're talking about. No, you cut the seam.
Oh, you cut the seam of it. Okay.
And so I do that for all of my penny sleeves, and then I take that and then I'll put that in like Card Saver 1 because that's the way PSA likes it. And I used to put stuff in the hard screw down holders, but after time that gloss will stick to the front, and when you peel it off, you'll lose the corners or you mash the corners or whatever. But I like you talk to different folks in the hobby, and that's one thing I like about the hobby. Most folks, they'll share their experiences and stuff. And, part of the draw to NASCAR was, I guess my collecting dollars go farther than, in baseball. So I'm not chasing the 3,000 or whatever it is, Altani rookies.
Right.
Hailey Deegan, I think what I say was like 500 or 600 was the 101.
Right. Her best card.
Jimmy, if, I do some of the, like, I'll buy some stuff on, check out my cards, and I'll flip some stuff. But it's amazing to see the card prices, when you compare that to the other sports. I think there's just so much value in NASCAR. Jimmy Johnson stuff is like $6 to $10 for a base rookie. And, Kevin Harvick, $1 or $2. I'm always looking at, okay, who's getting ready to retire, who's getting ready to come up. We talked about the NASCAR Hall of Fame. So after Jeff Gordon and those guys, the next class will be announced in May. And, Tony Stewart is probably going to be on that list.
Right.
You can pick up Stewart rookies for $1
or
$3 and autograph rookie for $30 or $20.
Wow.
Won multiple championships. He won 3 championships, and I think it's a great bargain. So even if the market went down to zero, I still have a good time and, pick up a base rookie for $1 or a couple of dollars and then run into him somewhere and get him to sign them. So, and then I get them authenticated through, PSA. You can get on if you're not on the PSA board, there's a blue flip and a red flip. A red flip is the auto is authentic and the card is graded, but a blue flip is just
the auto.
The card graded and the autograph is just authentic. So I get a lot of my stuff just graded with the blue flip. And you can there's a guy on the board that does twice a year. It's like $11. So
that's not bad at all.
I think it's, a bargain. I can get a Kyle Busch autograph rookie or Harvick rookie or any of those guys, Jimmy Johnson rookie authenticated for $11,
Yeah, it's hard to beat that. And like you said, if these guys appreciate in value, that $11 is well spent because now you got something, that you could resell if you wanted to. Val, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so, you get the card signed, that's value added, and I get PSA to authenticate it, that's more value added, right?
Right. No, yeah, exactly. And then you get a free lunch.
Exactly.
Val, I could see a scenario where somebody's listening to this and they've got some NASCAR cards or they got some questions. How could they reach out to you if they want to show you something or got a question about something NASCAR related?
Most of my days I'm on Twitter, at NASCAR Radio. It's like NASCAR, but you add the D.
Yeah.
NASCAR Radio.
That's if you're listening to Sports Card Radio, that should be easy enough to remember. NASCAR Radio on Twitter.
Yeah, it's kind of a homage to you guys, because I talked to you guys originally and was trying to get you guys to talk about NASCAR, and you guys wouldn't. You guys did the sport, so I was like, you know what, I'll just do it myself. So, but you guys were some of the first to have podcasts and do all that stuff on the stuff is really cool. So I thought, well, NASCAR Radio is good. It's a play on NASCAR and NASCAR because it's all about trading cards. And then I'm also I run another site, Racing Card Info, and that's where I've got some of the checklists and old scanned price guides and stuff. And then I'm also I do some pack breaks, box breaks. That was the other thing too, is trying to find out information like, okay, Press Pass would have all these different sets per year, and what's in what and what does it look like if it didn't have pictures on the thing. So I've opened all kinds of stuff and on YouTube, and that's Race Card Info. I've kind of consolidated all onto that. But yeah, if anybody has any questions or something, I love talking NASCAR. As you can tell, I talk all day on NASCAR and trading cards. So I think it's really cool. It's got a good price point, and there's so much access, and that everybody, like I said, not one driver will charge you for an autograph. Now, they'll do VIP experiences and stuff like Jeff Gordon, those guys. I don't know if it's $600 or $700, but you'll go to his trailer in the infield, and his hauler, his RV,
Right.
I think it was him and William Byron, and you can get an autograph and a picture, and talk with him a little bit. And so they're not really charging. Like at the National, you'll never see a NASCAR driver. I'm curious to see which is be the first one to charge, but you don't see them at the National. They'll be at Pro Bass Shop, or like I was saying, Discount Tire, Brad Kozlowski, I'll sign them for free. Or at the Fan Day, sign them for free. Right. Now, Kyle Busch Motorsports, he's kind of tough. He won't sign through the mail. He'll sign his diecast and stuff, but he won't sign cards. Huh. But you can in his fan club, and you get a koozie and a flag and some other stuff, and you get an invitation to his Fan Day. I think it's $45, and you get 2 autographs from Kyle Busch.
Oh, that's good.
And you can also get autographs from his wife, Samantha, and also his truck guys. And those are usually the guys you want to get, because they're the up-and-coming guys like Todd Gilliland and Noah Gragson and Riley Herbert, I think his name is. So he's got, I think it was 4 truck guys. So I pitched in for that last year, and that's another way I got, them to sign their rookies and stuff. So that was cool. Actually, it was really cool because Noah Graskin's asking me, he's like, where'd you get those? Did you buy them, individually? Did you buy them in pack? Where'd you get them? I was like, well, get them at Target or Walmart. It's kind of cool. And then one guy, he was saying, I said, he didn't have any base cards, but he's like, oh, I have cards in there. And I was, it made me thinking, he's like, no, he's got autograph cards in it, but he doesn't have any base cards. So, and Panini will do that where these guys will sign and they'll have signature series cards, but they don't have any base cards. Huh. And so then maybe the next year or a different release, they'll have a base card. So like I said, so there, it's a little bit of money here and there, but for the majority, it's a different, I guess, mindset than the baseball and the football and stuff.
Right. Well, maybe I'll, they got, looking at the schedule here, they got a couple races out in Phoenix, and last I looked, I live about 10 minutes from there. So maybe you get out here for one of these races, and I'll see you before the National, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll make it out there before the National, but I think I think there's a race in November that's possible. I guess November is, how's the weather over there in November?
Oh, the weather's here is always, pretty much sunshine, and then you dial down the degrees or up the degrees during the summer. So November 10th, you're probably looking at, 70 degrees and sunny, probably. That's my guess.
That sounds better than Charlotte in November.
Well, yeah, so I'll probably see you in Chicago, and we'll touch base, but don't be a stranger, and let's let's talk again soon.
Yeah, you better work on that set registry, and everybody work on that set registry, and meet for lunch in Chicago.
Yeah, that sounds like a deal. All right, buddy. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, Ryan.